Here's the question. How do you make the impossible possible? Simple. Remove the I am, the ego. Now, how do you step into that newfound possibility? With a series of small intentional steps. Never forget, the greatest among us started from humble beginnings. But to truly unlock your potential, realize you're here for something greater. If you're yearning for more than just a good life, let's take that small step together to reach greatness. Welcome to the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast, where we're talking to those who have gone from mediocrity to motivated, overlooked to overachieving, forgettable to unforgettable. Are you ready? Let's go. Well, welcome back. Welcome back, listeners, to the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast. And hopefully, if you listened to the one previous to this, you know that this is a return situation for these two wonderful people. And we've had a long relationship, all that. I'm begging you, listeners, to go back and listen to the other one. Doesn't matter if it was before or after, but listen to the other podcasts with them. A lot of great stuff. Amazing the number of quotes that came out of that, right? Dozens. I don't know, maybe at least
quite a few.
Yeah, there's quite a few. It was good. A couple of mic drops, Ooh, that was a good one, So I'm looking forward to how that comes out from a production standpoint and what impact that'll have. But even better this time, that I'm going to focus most of my questions in the conversation on Lorraine. Last time it was on Brian, with Lorraine's input, because you guys are a team. The we've talked about, the we together. And then we look at the other. Yep, guess what you just volunteered for? Yeah, but that's life. And Lillian and I are the same. So the core question about greatness, you alluded to it last time, but I want you to go through it and maybe dig a little bit deeper. What's your practical working definition of greatness? Like, okay, let me preface it now with this. God did not put us on this earth to be average. I'm convinced of that. Now, what greatness looks like for different people, I can't decide that. God has something for us, but average is out. Average is not what we're supposed to do. That does not create legacy and impact. So, back to the question. What's your practical working definition?
Practical working definition for me of greatness is, I guess in a nutshell, I don't want to emulate other people. So it would be being in progress of becoming a true reflection of Christ. Mm-hmm. And that would be being his hands and feet, seeing what he sees, hearing what he hears, feeling what he feels, and doing it smarter and not harder.
Okay. So let's talk about the word reflection.
Okay.
Is it a reflection of Jesus Christ?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. But let's talk about reflection. Well, a reflection is something we see.
I think a
So
reflection is if you're looking at me, I really don't want you to see me. I would rather that you are seeing Christ in me.
Okay.
So
and where do you find his reflection?
In his word.
In his word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there other ways? Some people say, oh, man, I had a guy talk to me recently. Yeah. He lives on actually a Caribbean island. I'm a little jealous. And he said he takes these runs along the ocean. And he was talking to me about 2 weeks ago, and he said, and today, and then he describes this sunset and how it happened and how that, and he said, I got shivers because like God was there. It was amazing. Like, so he was connecting, right? Is there other ways you do other than scripture?
Well, I definitely would say that all of my important decisions are made at the coast.
At the Oregon coast.
Pretty much, or big
water.
bodies of
You
water
love
or an
water.
ocean. I do.
And
I
the
love
sunshine.
Water. I love sunshine. I love to feel it in my face. I mean, there are, I call it a zoom out if you want to. I mean, for me, take 10, whatever, if things are just crazy. I do. I mean, I love to just go for a drive, get away. I mean, I think that
And you almost always head west. It's go for a drive would be go look at the ocean.
I usually head towards a body of water. Okay. I mean, it can be a lake. It can be whatever. I do love water. Yeah. Actually, you know what? This is like a side thing, but when I first
Love it.
okay, so when I first met Brian, it was so funny because when I was in 7th grade, I used to have this diary. I wrote all these things I wanted in a spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, this was just not a big deal, but I really wanted somebody who loved water and who loved to sing and who, if he wanted to play guitar, that would be awesome too. And then we went on this trip to Mexico, and we were writing before we went the first time. You're telling a little bit about each other. Well, he plays guitar.
Well, look
he
at that.
sings. Well, and we couldn't
Check
have
some
well, we
boxes.
couldn't have relationships on mission trips. So, but it was all these things in the back of my mind. It was
But you knew the boxes were checked.
I did. They were like check, 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 check. Anyway, that was a side note. So anyway, all that to say.
How many years ago was that?
38.
That trip.
30, yeah.
That was 38 years. So you've been married
36
6 years?
Actually,
Oh,
39.
37.
39 years ago was the
Oh,
trip
you're
because
right.
it was 84.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah. Anyway.
Good. I love that.
So, yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yeah.
So zooming out
great.
and bodies of water and God's word and music. I love music. I love listening to music. And typically I have a variety of different playlists, but depending on what I need, if I need to.
It is interesting
Yeah.
what we need from it sometimes,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then it's better just to go there, to be intentional.
Yes.
Last episode, we talked about
Yeah.
being intentional in so many different ways. And that's one that
Uh-huh.
really should be required almost.
Yeah.
is Music affects us in so many ways. So. Good. So again, the podcast name, Greatness from Small Beginnings. We've kind of talked a little bit about greatness. So let's talk about your small beginnings.
Okay.
Let me tell a story real quick though.
Yeah.
Is that I never met your dad. I met your mom, but I never met your dad. I don't believe. But I went to his funeral because that we were supporting you as a family, right? Because we'd known you, done road trips and done crazy stuff, and we were friends. So we came to that funeral. And I remember vividly walking away from that saying, if I could have that kind of impact that he had, that would, I get you. I'm about to cry myself, okay? Because I remember in that moment, I was sitting at the end of the pew that was 2/3 back. I was right on the aisle. And I sat there going, I don't even know this guy. And I'm holding back tears in that moment saying, he was incredible. I wish I'd have known him, is what I thought at that moment.
I wish you could have to.
Yes. But then I contrast that with another funeral I went to about 4 months ago. And this guy's brother-in-law got up and he said, Ed was a good man. And he went through the list of things Ed did. And he was a giver. He was a really nice guy. I knew him fairly well. But it didn't have the same impact from the standpoint of people's eternity and people's souls, and that they knew that the reason he cared is because he cared about where you're going to go, where you're going to end up. And your dad had that for sure. Sorry about the emotion.
Oh,
but
it's okay.
Man, that was a huge moment for me. And I don't know if I've ever told you that.
Well,
but that
thank
was,
you. We call those memory hugs.
yes, that was
From your dad.
There you go. That was a memory hug.
Yep.
But I also know that there's some stories that had led, lots of stories with your parents, your family that led up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you born? What happened?
Born in Phoenix, and my dad was in Bible school when I was born. He was in Bible college, and then he went to seminary here in Portland, and then he became a pastor. And so I grew up basically with my dad being in ministry really all of my growing up. And some great and very real things about that that I,
So you mean real as in?
real as in real life. I mean, people you see people at when they're just going through hard times. You see the good, bad, and the ugly. And as Dad would say, you get to see the same things sometimes that a lot of doctors do. You just don't have the same paycheck.
Yeah, so you end up in people's issues and
deep
the muck in
stuff.
their life,
Yeah.
the yucky stuff a lot of
Well,
times.
he was not only pastor, but also teacher.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
also fire chaplain.
Yeah.
Oh, so that put him
Yeah.
out on scene.
And I guess that played a big role of his life. Really, all of my growing up, he was on, He was a chaplain in the fire department, so he was Hood River and Sisters. And
Why'd you do that?
he always, from the time I can remember him talking about us, what we would do for a living or where we would work, he always wanted to make sure that there was never an us and them mentality of people who know the Lord personally and who don't. He goes, we are all the same. And we really are. And this is not his phrase. I think it might have been another Dr. Mary, and I don't know where it came from, but we're all the same at the foot of the cross.
Oh, yeah.
We're all sinners in need of a Savior.
Yeah. So as a pastor,
Yeah.
he loved bridging.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's his way of getting into the trenches and making relationships throughout the community.
Yeah, and he was hilarious. Actually, he was just really funny. And
But it wasn't to be just strategic, though. I mean, it was
It was just
intentional.
very genuine.
very
Yeah,
relational.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So how are you like that?
I think my memories, some of my favorite memories of my dad are just, we would call them prayer walks. We would just walk in the morning. We'd walk through the neighborhood. We'd pray for people. One of our favorite places to go was the cemetery. I know that sounds a little crazy, but we lived right around the corner from the cemetery. We'd walk through the apple orchards to get to the cemetery. And we would just walk and we would look at different gravestones. And I think it was, for him, I think it was a great opportunity to instill in me that there is, life is so short, just is so short. And why are we here? And what are we doing? And one of the things he said a lot is that God has a plan and a purpose, and he's working it out in his time and his way for his glory. And I think that's kind of foundational for a lot of how I grew up thinking.
Is that just exactly how he said it almost every time?
Pretty
close.
yeah.
And my dad had 100 things he'd said, and he said them the same way every time.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. To answer your question too, she has an innocent desire to help anyone, which in
That's for
the
sure.
older days used to be picking people up on the side of the street, hitchhikers.
Perhaps dangerous at times.
Until her dad and I both got her to stop doing that. Times have changed, but just this very much authentic desire to meet needs and to be real. We had a phrase all through our marriage, which was nothing you can ever do will cause us to love you more or less than we already do, and nothing you can do is going to surprise us. So we have had...
Until it does, Dr. Mary says.
Until it does.
But it really was a big deal for people who are addicts or alcoholics of some kind, or going through really horrible things like you wouldn't believe. We're like, no, you probably would.
Yeah.
Nothing you're going to do is going to change how we see you, and we've probably already heard it. And even if it's new, it doesn't matter. So we've had people thrown up in the back seat of our car. We've had late night, any time of the night stuff. And that is in part how we're wired, but it became very real and practical because of her upbringing and her flair
And
to that part of our relationship.
when I got to know you, you only lived about, 8 minutes from the airport?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of late night trips. And, and then for that next 20 years plus, you lived near the airport. So I know that there was a lot of late night pickups. And
A lot of airport runs.
Early
We used to
morning
just
drop-offs. And
just kind of laugh that we could just get in the car and say airport and it would drive itself. I know they have cars that can do that
Nowadays,
but-
you can.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, actually, I would say another thing about growing up with the family that I grew up, I would say just the term 24/7 was a very real one for our family, of just being available 24/7. So, really, when things are horrible, it's rarely at a convenient time. I mean,
It's not usually the daytime.
Yeah, you don't
need to
get
call somebody
You
at
don't
night.
get to dictate when
It's always
something's
the worst
when you're
time.
going to feel good or bad. You don't get to dictate that.
And
So
then we look back at the next time it happens, and well, guess what? It's at the worst possible time too. Well, how could they all be at the worst time?
Yeah.
Well, it just seems like that.
Yeah.
But we tell people you can call us day or night, and it takes a while for people to realize we're serious. But you get the 3 a.m. calls, and sometimes it means
every
getting
now
in the
and
car
then.
and going somewhere. You just do it.
yeah, and you guys are
Keep
friends like
showing
that. I mean, if something happened for us, I mean, we have a handful of people that we would do, but you and Lil are some of those people. It wouldn't matter what time it was, we would just call. So we want to be that to other people too. So we appreciate that
Yes.
from you guys too. So.
Yes, and I appreciate that too. Yeah, I feel the same way. So let me tell a story also on you.
Oh.
About
On you,
you.
Brady.
Oh, look, I
Yes.
get to be comic relief again.
Not you.
Oh.
but, actually, it's both of you, but probably more so you. Okay, is that we've been through some tough times together. There was multiples. Like we could go back and go through the list, and some of them were just kind of flashes where we were in another country or in Tahoe or something, and we have stories. We could just go for an hour, but during the whole process of going through all that, we realized that some of our friends have different, they play different roles in our life. Some have certain compartments, and it's a little unfair to leave them there all the time. But really, the compartment, again, that's not the kindest way to say it, but it tells the listeners what I'm getting at, that you guys have always fit for us is when we just need someone to love us no matter what, then we call the Heerwagens. Then we, if we're both feeling that way, we know exactly who to call, and it's you guys. Because we'll meet up, or you'll come over, or we'll go to your house, and there's really no expectations. We just bring us, as unkept as we might be at that moment.
What is that phrase we used? It was like, I think, and we still do. We don't want to be with anybody. Do you guys want to hang out?
Yes. So that was one example is that we were thinking about going to a movie or something, and the movie's not playing at the right time. Well, let's call the Heerwagens because we don't really want to do anything. Well, that's a terrible way to say that, right?
Because it sounds like we're really boring.
And yet, what did we say when we called you? Well, we don't really want to do anything.
Uh-huh. So we picked you.
So we picked you, and you're all like, yes, that's awesome. Let's go do nothing.
Yeah.
Because isn't it
Together?
incredible to be authentic and genuine and unafraid of having to prove anything?
It's rare.
I mean, it is rare.
It's
The
rare.
world
So
doesn't
thank
shape us
you.
that way.
That we have that in you for sure.
It's
There's
quite
others
mutual, so thank you.
that
Very
can
mutual.
provide that, but
Yeah.
there is no doubt that you provide that for us, for Lillian and I, and we appreciate it very much.
Yeah, anytime you don't want to do anything, just call.
Just call. Yeah. And now you might have things going, and I might have to just do nothing while you do them. Like I remember out on your deck, you were doing
That's
something,
right.
chiseling or whatever, and I did help, but to me that was like doing nothing because I didn't have to think about what was on my mind, right? So I appreciate that deck building or whatever we were doing. So back to the small beginnings, pastor life in the 70s.
Yeah.
Lacked money, but it didn't really lack, right?
Yeah,
Like you
and
did-
the same is true really of my life growing up and our life together as a married couple too. We haven't had a lot of quote unquote financial, things, but we have talked many, many times about just the gift of things that we've been able to do, the opportunities we've had to do, different countries or whatever, and just friends for whatever reason that they like us, that they invite us to come to their timeshares, or you know what I mean. It's just like things that we could never do, quote unquote, out of our own pocket.
Can't even manipulate it to happen, probably.
Right, but we can certainly be grateful and totally appreciative and have a blast at the same time. So I just think,
Which is humbling, but a blessing.
well, I think it might be humbling for him. I just totally love it.
Good for you. Yes, we do have that provider conqueror piece of us, and we're like,
Yeah.
I love to provide.
wait a minute. But then we go with you and we see you light up, and it's like, okay.
So, in fairness, when we are given something, I usually want to make sure Lorraine's there because I'm like, oh, thank you. What good timing. And she's like, wow, this is amazing. Thank you. And she gives hugs. I'm like,
Yes.
don't just give it to me. It's so anticlimactic.
Yeah,
I am
that's right.
truly grateful. Maybe more than she is.
You'll send a thank you card, and she is the thank you
If
card.
I do, or I'll have her thank you. She does great thank you cards. She writes beautiful cards. So, anyway.
That is so good. So more of this. Is there more to the story?
Well, I think I just want to say too, just in terms of when we met. So, we both met on a missions team, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that have been a little great, but also hard for me. So we met on a missions trip, and we did these personality profiles, and we were both like the same. High I, high D.
Oh, that's a problem.
Well,
It
and
can be.
could be, yes.
It can be.
and so when we went to marriage counseling, it was like, well, you guys are either going to be a great team or you're not.
Or you're not.
Or you're not.
And so really, I think it's just been God's grace that has made it possible for us to work well together as a team. But I do remember, really over the years, God has been so gracious to provide work for me, typically outside of Mission Works now or other things, as a way to help provide finances for us and insurance benefits. Because, I usually worked in medical settings or something, always had good insurance. But there was one time I do remember thinking, I went from being Lorraine Gentry to being Brian's wife, which is great because, Heerwagen, not everybody gets the last name Heerwagen. But, there was just a little bit of a time there. It's like, okay, well, if I wasn't married to Brian, I might also be able to be doing full-time missions and so it was kind of a neat opportunity for me to be able to just really truly give that to the Lord and be able to, just be able to say, okay, I think I am kind of dealing with a little bit of an identity thing where, I've been single, I've been on my own, I've been doing a lot of mission trips and we're all the same. And now he's doing it and I'm working, and so it was kind of a little bit, that was one of the challenges. That was before kids.
Oh, it was before kids.
Yeah, before kids. And because that's when he was doing all of the part-time job set. So anyway, I feel like I'm just trying to be as honest and transparent with you
of course.
as you were kind of asking about that. And really the gift in all of that and sharing that is just the realization that God has provided many opportunities through working together when I could, but also in the work settings or other places that he had me in other ways of ministry too.
We each in our relationships almost always have different things to put our hands on. Our work, the work of our hands, though my wife and I are a we and you guys are a we, the work of our hands is different.
Yep.
And sometimes it becomes we trip over the identity of that or wonder if it's enough or are we enough when we do those things. So I appreciate that. Sometimes we have to actually process it.
Yeah.
And be intentional about saying
Again and again sometimes.
Again, yeah,
Takes a
over and
while.
over often, right?
Because then also came the mother part. Where
Yes.
that became another identity thing.
So,
as well.
so the question I really want to ask, and I'm not even sure exactly how you would answer it, but did you ever, because you had that piece that, well, if only, if this, like, if not this, then I could have done that. But I love thinking, for my wife, she always wanted to be a mom, but that was kind of her main goal in life. But did you always feel that way? Did you ever feel a little trapped? Is probably not the right word, but a little constrained by that when you kind of had this idea that would be cool to do this other thing?
I don't think I ever really felt trapped. I think every once in a while when Brian, because he would sometimes travel for, be gone for a while, and I don't think I felt trapped. I think we went through a few, when he would be gone for a long time, and I would have to be the mom and the dad kind of a thing, and then he would come home. We would call it the reentry phase. It's like he's back, and so we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace to remember that I've been making all the decisions.
Kind of have to refigure
it all out. So, no, I don't think I ever really resented any of that. I think it was just really us really learning to communicate together and what does that really mean?
Yeah, and just that we are a lot alike. We were going to be independently wealthy, by the way. We did test for that as well.
We did.
We were going to be very wealthy.
By the time we were 40.
And we were going to travel the world together.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you did the world thing.
Well, but not together. And that's what I was going to say is, along with, what we have our hands on, that changed for her and becoming a mom. In that season, too, what her desire was to travel all the time did change to, but I need to be with the kids. I want to be with the kids. So sort of by, I think, God's blessing, there was this, we called it maternal instinct that sort of rose up at that time, which was good. I suspect it lasted longer than we thought it would because eventually she was going to get back to world travel with me. So we never got independently wealthy. We never traveled the world together consistently, but we've experienced the blessings of things like that all along the way.
Yeah.
And been able to raise kids, and her steadiness at home is phenomenal.
He says that, but I don't think he remembers the times when I called him at work and said, "You have to come home. I can't be a mommy."
It is so cool. So that our oldest recently
Yes, we love your oldest.
adopted a baby, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been a little bit of a struggle. Like he's, and trying to figure out the not sleeping regularly. He admitted, I think on another podcast or something, that he really likes his sleep. He realized how much he really kind of loved his sleep. Well, that baby is in control of that to some degree. But those things change in life. And I guess we just have to ride it. That baby is in control for a period of time.
Yeah.
And so, man,
Well, wouldn't you say making the choice not just to ride it, but to embrace it?
Yeah,
Because it's not going to stay this way. So what can we milk out of this that's the best it can be?
good point. It's temporary.
Yeah.
This
It is always
season
temporary.
is temporary.
The long
yeah.
view helps a lot too.
What is that phrase that was on our fridge?
Oh, this too shall pass.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this too shall
Yeah.
pass.
We got that from a good counselor friend of ours when it was his gift to us when our first daughter was born. Just a 3x5 card. He said, "This is the best gift I can give.
Put it
This
on your
too shall
fridge."
pass. Put it on your fridge."
So it
Yeah,
was
we've
just a
lived by that.
3x5 card.
It wasn't
even a
handwriting.
plaque.
Oh, yeah.
No, and no gift wrap.
That is so
And
good.
it's the only gift I can say we remembered that we got when our firstborn was born. That's the one
Yeah.
gift we remember. It will pass.
Because
Everything will.
so it's kind of two-sided coin. It's like this too shall pass. If it's hard, it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
But if it's amazing, you need to enjoy it while you can.
Yes,
I mean,
and
this too
it'll
shall-
also
yeah.
pass, and it'll become mundane again
exactly. Yep.
someday
and
soon.
a sweet memory.
Yeah, and a good memory.
Yeah.
But we have to again be intentional about kind of deciding
Yeah.
that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lillian, my wife, is really a champion at deciding things ahead of time. That I'm going to respond this way. I'm gonna be this kind of person in this situation, and having thought through it, to some degree.
So she
Now-
can respond better instead of becoming reactionary.
Yes.
That's what we talked about the last time we met.
And you already know that she has a little of that in her. That like, ooh, I don't want her reacting. That's not pleasant. For her or anybody, actually. She's a very strong person. That's good.
Well, as far as like going through, I just want to kind of recap in that I feel like my work life has been really totally parallel to what the needs of our family have been at any given time. I just feel like God has been so gracious in that because sometimes I work part-time, sometimes I work full-time. And I just feel like, it was all a great thing. But I want to also say that I really feel like God has made it known that he sees me. I mean, he knows that my personality is not necessarily the sit at the desk for your rest of your life kind of a thing. And, I've found myself in that position a lot in some of my jobs. And every once in a while, I would just be like, man, really be nice not to just like have to punch a time clock and sit at a desk to get my job done.
Well, now you don't,
I don't.
right?
I don't.
So talk to me about that.
Oh, okay.
So let's go back real quick to a question I kind of passed over.
Sure.
That this will probably be near the end of your bio. Tell me, who you are. You said greatness is a reflection of Christ. So that's one thing about who you are, right? Wife, mom. So just continue that list.
Okay.
Until now, you are you've got this occupation. I want you to tell the listeners about kind of how that happened.
Okay. Well, I would say definitely more important than any of those things about my work jobs is, I'm a wife and a mother, and now I'm a grandmother. And I think really all of those people, they make me who I am to be what I do. I mean, I think, and I love, I really do truly love working with people, being with people. And so most of my jobs were a lot of them on the phone. I did a lot of things on the phone and at a desk. And so I really, when people would say, well, what do you like to do? What do you like, what would you like to do? If you could do anything, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I would like to not sit at a desk. I would like to be out. I would like to be with people. And in the back of my mind, I have always wanted to do real estate. I mean, I always wanted to be a real estate agent. And every time there was an open house, I would, let's go here, let's go there, there's an open house, And, redoing a house, walking through a house and saying, well, making it functional, making it practical, whatever. I just have always loved that. And so in 2017, I started working on getting my real estate license. And then just everything happened. My mom died. We have 3 girls. They all got married within 9 months' time. Then Brian had surgery for his heart. Then his head was messed up. I mean,
Wait, what does that mean? My head was messed up.
that is kind of a pivotal time though, because he
Yes.
so
I can resonate with the story.
yeah. Anyway, complications for
Rough.
It was
surgery.
let's say
it was
rough.
medical necessarily,
yeah, it
not
was
mental.
medical.
Yeah, we had
We'll
a
just
crazy,
clarify that for those
crazy
listening.
year.
Yeah, it was a crazy season.
year.
But he went from being his multicolored Excel sheet extraordinaire to like single column black and white, and it scared me. And so
and
it
him
was,
too.
yeah. But anyway, all that happened. And so all those things were kind of put on hold, and God provided great job for me with benefits that took care of most of that. And then it was actually a small group, and you guys were there, and there's Callaways and Galloways and Lewis's, and we were just all talking about bucket lists. I think it was, weren't we talking about our
Yeah, I
bucket
think we
list
were
or
talking
something?
about
It's like,
bucket
I mean,
lists, yeah.
we're all this age. Here we are.
Yep.
And it's like, well, what hasn't somebody done that they wanted to do?
Right.
And so for me, it was like still there. I really want to get my real estate license. And so that was really, was that 2 years ago? It was when I started going back to school. 2.5 years ago, right? Anyway, well, whatever it was, it wasn't that long ago.
It was about 3 years ago then we had that conversation.
yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah. So then I
Because there was like, it costs X amount of dollars. I don't have
Yeah.
that many dollars.
Well, and
so,
all of you were like so good. It's like, well, you don't have kids at home anymore. It's like, well, yeah, we don't have kids anymore. So we're not solely dependent on my income. You know what I mean? It was just all these things. It's like, well, why am I not doing it? So, and you took the money out of your wallet. And I don't know, it's 10 $1 bills.
I think it was $10.
Yes, and actually there's still clipboard to the thing I have just as a incentive to start. It's like to just do it. And
Jumpstart.
Brian was incredibly supportive, and our girls. I mean, I just couldn't. It's like I'm like, maybe I'm too old to do this. I mean, like I'm almost 60, and
Are we too old?
yeah, and that's the thing.
That's part of why we're talking.
Yeah, I guess it's not.
I think we're never really done.
I don't think we're done.
Yeah.
But
Somebody else decided what too old is.
And it's not about the real estate thing. It's about doing what we're here to do, that we kind of do best. And then when we go do what we do best, and maybe it is a work or a job or earning some particular money in a different way, then we actually meet people and affect lives and have impact because we're where we're supposed to be. That's a good word to those that are listening, right? Let's not wait, perhaps as long as
I would just say that, and you hear people say, well, if I could do it, anybody can. I mean, but I'm just saying that's true. I mean, if I can do that, then because you have these mental things, it's like, well, I mean, he likes to have every dollar have a name on a paper, and so he's very good at budgeting and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going from having this great health insurance and a budget to nothing, except for now we're not spending money. We're not making money. We're spending money in order to make this possible for me. You think
it's kind of like having your own business.
Well,
like
it is. I mean,
and
there's
build your book of business.
There's way more expenses than you ever think or whatever. And so anyway, so you're not too old. I mean, I'm just saying that to anybody. If there's something you want to do, there's really no reason not to, then don't just not do it. Just try it.
One of the questions I'd love to ask, and maybe you just answered it, but maybe there's something you'd like to fold into it too, is to those, we'll get to the how do we finish stronger. You mentioned you're 60. How do we finish strong? We'll get to that in a minute. But what would you say to the 30, 35-year-old self? Maybe you're raising kids, but they're getting there, right? And you started those part-time jobs, full-time jobs. You kind of always wished for this other thing, or at least not that kind of job. What would you say to them as you look back? I mean, not as if you have regrets, because you said it's been a blessing all along.
Yeah.
But what might have you done different?
I have this shirt that says, don't give up on your daydream. I mean, it's like, I would just say, don't just assume that it can't happen. Because I think it's easy to lull yourself into, call it a comfort zone or a distorted comfort zone.
Distorted, yeah. Often they are.
Distorted comfort zone.
Just because we're familiar with it. It's comfortable.
Right. This is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be that way. So I guess I would say at 35, you have, there's so much time. I mean, enjoy the moments that you have, but just realize there is more to come.
Yes.
I think too, a lot of people feel like what they are now in is the forever. I'll always be like this. I'll never be able to look up. I say this a lot, but look up and breathe. Look ahead again, have the long view, because these things do change and there is still opportunity ahead. And especially if you're in your 30s, now we know you have a lot of life left to go. Don't give up.
Yeah. And in my world, construction world, especially some of the groups I'm in, they're talking often, especially this time of year, about, well, what's our goals? What's our goals for the year and these kinds of things. And it can actually become super selfish. It can. But if you break down a goal to the actual process of getting to it, then it becomes more granular. It becomes part of our intention. It becomes actually relational with others and God as we actually march it out. Yeah. And then we realize as we look back at some of my goals, it actually wasn't really that much about the goal. Yeah. Though maybe I may still be headed there, not at 22, but maybe 23, maybe 24.
Yeah.
But the process has been awful fun to dream about doing that thing. And the goals come from dreams, and you had a dream. So
yeah. Well, and actually, I think we were just together not too long ago and just realized looking around the room, it's like, you have a business, they have a business, you have a business. I have a business. It's like,
yes.
We are all in our 60s. So, it's just really, we're just not that old. I guess that's the bottom line.
No, we're not.
And if you're 30, you're really not that old.
Yeah.
And we, in theory at least, have a little wisdom to go with it now, right?
Yeah.
So we might run out of energy at 6 or 7, and really do need to sit down, maybe take a nap or whatever.
Yeah.
But we also can be more intentional because we understand what it takes a little bit better than we did back in our 30s when we were just like, this is just what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's not Brian's phrase. I'm sure somebody else came up with it, but he does say it a lot. Let's figure out a way to do this smarter, not harder. Mm-hmm. And he's incredible at that. And I'm so grateful just to be able to know, he's able to be not just a visionary, but he knows how to have the feet to get there.
Yeah.
And so just, this is embarrassing and vulnerable, but my desk really at home was just like, for me, I could find stuff if I, kept digging or whatever, but, just finally gave in and said, okay, what would you do to make this organized? Well, he gets these tables in the family room all lined up and he takes everything and everything's in a pile. And then he says, go sit at your desk. So if you're sitting here, what do you want to reach for? What do you want to do? So it's just the tangibleness of making things happen. And he's very good at making things happen, which I really do need because I actually, in all reality, just kind of run around with my hair on fire sometimes.
Just want to go be with people.
Well, I do.
She's very good at that.
Very good at that.
Yes.
Right?
And actually, you know what? This is an illustration that our principal broker gave, is if you have 5 fingers, you just realize that 3 of those are going to be stronger than all. There's going to be a couple of them that aren't going to be as strong. And it's okay to recognize that and say, okay, these are not my gift. This is not my gifting. This is not going to help me get to where I want to get, and be able to transfer that to somebody else or hire somebody else to do that or whatever it takes, just to realize that it's okay to focus on what you're good at and not have to.
And maybe a messy desk is, sometimes you leave it sometimes, right?
Well, yeah.
Because it just doesn't matter as much, right?
Yeah.
Not in your case, of course, but
maybe
but in my
it does
case.
come down to prioritization and time too,
Yes.
because with her job, there are some seasons, days or even weeks where the work at hand has to be all the time worked on. This is not the time to sort a desk.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is okay sometimes for things like that to happen.
Yeah.
But I would also encourage what she's saying is true with just the teamwork that it takes. That does require, again, humility and trust, and the fact that they may fail or you may fail in the process. But you do need people. You can't do it all yourself. People get super reactionary, super stressed out, try to do everything on their own. I got to fix this, but breathe. And whether it's your spouse or a coworker or a good friend, share the load. Trust people. Whatever that is, take some of the load for those fingers that aren't as strong. It's hard work to do that, but it's
hard work. But it's
absolutely
worth it.
pays off.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Good. So we jump forward to the decade we're all in now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And talk to those who are our age or maybe a little older, and if it's even different, might not be different. This might be a short answer. What's your encouragement to them based on your process throughout your whole life as you look back?
I guess it would be similar, but I think for me, just realizing that the more I learn, the more I realize how much more I have to learn. And it's kind of like, there's kind of an excitement about that actually, when you realize, oh, I'm not too old to learn more. I mean, there's something awesome about realizing that God really did make our brains to be amazing. We don't tap into hardly any of it. And the more it expands, the more it can keep expanding. And I don't know, it's actually very quite exciting.
It is.
Said by the person who went back to school a couple of years ago, essentially real estate school, and studied and studied and studied and tested and tested and tested. We can still do it.
Yeah. And it's always changing. I mean, it's like anything you pick to do, you realize you'll never know all there is to know.
Yeah.
You just never will. So just to be able to keep that open and keep learning more is awesome.
Man, I agree with that. 3 and 4 years ago, that time period, we reorganized our total business like we needed to because we were growing like crazy. And I remember feeling this crazy exhilaration that was part stress, and anxiety, like, I don't know how this is going to work. And yet this excitement that I remembered back when I was learning plays when I was 16 on the football field, like, look how that works. If we do this, it does that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at 16, that exhilaration of learning something new. I don't ever remember that in a class, but I do remember it on the football field. And then I've said several times since then, I feel like a 16-year-old again because I'm learning things daily about how this could work or should work.
Don't you think that's key, though? You said daily. I mean, I know for me, I feel like I just take things in little pieces instead of having to have the huge picture already completed to realize it's okay that it takes time. It's okay that it takes time to learn it, and you don't have to have it all right now. I was just talking to a lady at the swimming pool, and she's reading a book called The Atomic Habit.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Have you seen it? Mm-hmm. And I haven't read it yet. Anyway, I'm just telling you what she said about it, which was impacting to me, was that, you do a little more tomorrow than you did today. And a little bit, and it's just, and then you realize, and you look back and it's like, oh, it's not as hard for me to do X or whatever it is, it's just little chunks.
But this is kind of countercultural. You talk about to our age group and older, because somehow we were told we deserve a rest.
Yeah.
We've put in our
We have to retire.
And we also like it the way it was. So when anything new comes along, we're critical. So we actually wind down. But whoever decided that's what we're supposed to do? The idea that we can keep learning and keep pressing forward and going forward is countercultural. But we can. We have a lot still to do, a lot still to give.
I think we should.
We should. Yeah.
I think the people in our past history who we consider great, most of them achieved in their 60s and 70s. That we look back now and say they're great.
That's true.
But we do not want to become the curmudgeon, the average.
Correct.
Watching TV all the time, wearing slippers all day. Not that there's anything wrong with TV or slippers, but when you just sort of settle in, I've arrived, I deserve better, I like it the way it was, don't make me change. That's not a very good way to finish. If we keep learning, become a real estate agent, grab a new dream, start another career, whatever.
Yeah.
Reorganize your business, all in faith and all out of obedience to
pass
the Lord.
it. If you want to change, you've still got time probably. Let's pass it off well and then do something else that really lights us up maybe more.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm looking out at my 10-year plan. It's like, oh, this looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If the body holds up, whatever. And I'm going to do my best on that one too. Yeah.
Well.
So kind of wind up here by asking a question that I love to ask. So you get the privilege of crawling through the microphone, down the cord, and you're sitting in the car with somebody listening. And you're walking with them with their earbuds in and they're listening to the podcast, and you've got 30 seconds to a minute to sum it up, to make the last little piece of impact that they may not remember anything else that's been said. What would you say to them?
God sees you. He loves you so much that he sent his son to die for you. And he's not surprised of what's going on. And more importantly, he's not trying to figure out what to do next.
Oh, man, that's a good one.
Because he already has a plan.
He already got it figured out. Oh, man, that's so good. Thank you. Yep. What about for you? What would you say?
That's a hard act to follow.
It sure is.
it isn't too late. It never is. Nothing's forever. It's not permanent, whatever you're thinking, feeling, going through. Keep living towards your hopes, but do it knowing the why behind the what. Don't just add all the what to it. Do it with the right heart and humility and faith and obedience to the Lord. You talk a lot about being great, but greatness really is the result of being a humble, compliant, faithful, believing person who just trusts the Lord and all those things. So then great things.
The
That comes
pathway
out
to
back.
greatness right
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I love it. So that wraps it up. Watch the podcast. Tell people about it. Subscribe, download, like, love, whatever is appropriate for the platform. Please do that. And let's get the word out. The last call to action is go be great.